We can record the next one too, if since we've got a few of these, but sorry about that. Thanks, Ben, for that reminder. Okay, so back by popular demand, we've got a little bit of some questions to test your knowledge so far, seeing how you're engaging with this book. So I've got a poll that I'm going to send you, and this is just do your best with answering some of these. I'm going to stop sharing my computer or my screen for a second. So does everybody see the poll? Okay, so go ahead and take a couple minutes there to answer those questions. Got like a few results coming in from like 3 people. And I cannot see who says what as well. So this is anonymous, so no fear. All right, I'll give you one more minute and then we'll review this.
Hey, Rodney, for the next quiz, do you have those in 2 groups, or do you have them in like one at a time?
They're in 2 groups. There's like a set of questions for before the activity that Steve had said, and then one for after.
All right, cool. We can do that. That's fine.
All right. Well, let's review a little bit, shall we? So the first question, the main job of an M&E specialist is to design impact evaluations. We had 100% of people say false, so that's correct. Good job, everybody. That's not our role. That is the role of the PER team, so that's great. Number 2, the R in CART stands for radical. So everybody said false for that as well. Yes, what does that stand for? I heard
responsible.
Excellent, Vida. Thank you.
Vida.
Number 3, monitoring data allows organizations to report back whether they did what they said they would do. 100% said true. That's correct as well. So that's great. Number 4, what types of monitoring will our team be involved in? Check all that apply. All right, so this one got a little bit more complicated because we've got multiple teams actually represented on this call. So we've got Ben from the business analytics side of the team, where they focus a little bit more on operations data. And so financial data might be included in some of the things that they do. But for us in monitoring and evaluation, we are really focused on those 4 after that: activity tracking, targeting, engagement, and feedback. Those are the types of data we'll be really working with more often. So impact evaluation, nobody said that. Management, this I could see.
Hey Rodney.
Yeah.
Sorry. Could you share your screen so we can see those results? Is that possible?
Yeah, sure. All right, here we go. Okay. So you can see here, we
can't see anything yet.
Oh, really?
I see the screen. Sorry, I see the screen. I see testing and understanding. I don't see like results or anything like that.
Oh, I wonder if it doesn't. I
feel like last time we did, we were able to see that, but maybe not.
I have it. I can see it, but maybe it doesn't show it for some reason. Do I have to end poll maybe? Here, let me try that. Okay, maybe this works better. Share results.
There we go. Got it.
Okay, good. Okay, so we were talking about this 4 types of monitoring. So, like I talked about, financial is more on the operations, business analytics side of things. So we don't necessarily work with that, at least at the moment, as much. Management, I could see why somebody would have put this. I think it's because we are, we might be looking at some of management questions and things like that, but maybe that could be kind of embedded within some of these other types of monitoring as well. Nobody put food delivery. That was a bit of a trick question, so good job everybody on that. Okay, next one. The PPI is an example of what type of monitoring? Targeting, everybody put, and that's correct. It really is looking at, are we working with the right types of beneficiaries? So excellent job there. In collecting high quality data, it is important to pre-test the instrument, and that's true, and that's something that that chapter talks about, that type of practice as well as many others. So that's excellent. All right, good job, everybody. Looks like we are on the right track there. Okay, Ben, I think we're ready to transition to your portion of the
All right.
call.
Great. Can I share my screen then?
Yep.
All right. Hello, everyone. Good to see you again. Give me a second to load up. Yeah. Hello. Hey, is it Vida or Vita?
I prefer Vida.
Vida. All right. Vida it is. Sorry, I got things going on here. Let me see. Where did my screen go? It's so good to see all of you. And let me just say, we're really excited to see you in person in about a month and a half or so. So really excited to start building some community in person. That's going to be a lot of fun in London. What I want to share with you today is one of the dashboards that we've created for the program quality measures. So the PQMs, those program quality measures, there are 6 of them, as you know. One of them is we're calling level of education at exit. Sometimes we also refer to this as years of education. So if you hear either of those things, they mean the same thing. This dashboard that I'm showing you is what we've created to show the rest of the organization. And we've started to do a few what we're calling road shows to get a few people's input, but we haven't talked with that many people. So you guys are some of the first people to actually see this. I want to walk you through this dashboard. And then I've got some questions or another quiz, actually 2 different quizzes for you to see how well you've been paying attention. So make sure you pay attention, I guess. Okay, so at the upper left-hand corner, you can see level of education at exit. There's also a date range right beside that. That date range represents the months for which we are capturing data. So in this particular case, we're talking about 6 months of exit data. These are exits between December 2018 and May 2019. In about 5 days, that will change. We'll be at the end of June. And so that would then show January 2019 to June of 2019. So we'll have 6 months again of exit data. If you look at the upper right-hand corner, you can see a blue box that says estimated level of education, 90% confidence, and the value in there is 9.2 to 9.2. So while it looks like a range, there's not much of a range there. What you see in blue anywhere on our PQM dashboards is kind of the high-level number that we care about. So 9.2 is the total number we would say for years of education for children that have exited in the past 6 months. Those children have about 9.2 years of education, or 9.2 years of level of education. Now you might ask the question, well, why does that say estimated? Why don't we just know the answer? The reason for that is the field that we're using in Connect is on the beneficiary profile, and it's called US equivalent grade level. You might be familiar with that field. It's converted field based on your local grade level in your own context. But that field, on average, is 8 years. So that's what that raw level of education field means right there. So on average, on the beneficiary profiles for these children, they would say 8 years of education. But we also saw that those fields are not being updated that regularly. In fact, on average, they were updated 1.5 years ago. So our PFM standard is we only update right every 2 years, and so this isn't surprising to us, but it does mean we have to do a little bit of estimation. And so we take that 8 years and we add in a portion of that 1.5 years based on some historical data, and we get to a range of 9.2 to 9.2. It's a very tight range because we have such a high sample size. And I'll talk to that in a second. On average, those 6 months worth of children that exited are 15.6 years old. And the total number of children across Compassion that exited in the last 6 months is 54,580. So again, we have a large sample size there, which lets our confidence interval be rather small. If you look in the middle, you can see what this blue number is broken out by age group. So if we were just looking at 22-year-old children, you can see there are 4,305 children. That's what that N represents. 4,305 children that were 22 years old at the time of exit, and they had on average 13.3 years of education. And you can see that for every other age above 15. Lastly, if you look to the left again, you can see a chart with a lot of dots in them. Those dots represent buckets of children. So I'm going to hover over one. Hopefully you can see that. But on our x-axis, we represent beneficiary age. The y-axis represents the level of education or years of education. So what I'm hovering over are 17-year-old children who have 9 years of estimated education, and you can see there are 840 of them. What we would expect to see over time, or rather against age, as age increases, we would expect to see a fairly linear increase in years of education, right? Roughly 1 year a child gets of education per year of age. You'll notice that that line is pretty sharp on top. We don't have much data over here. We do have data down here. There's a reason for that. We have decided to exclude some data from this report. Every child that will be up in this section will be what I call child prodigies. So those would be children that are like 6 years old that have something like 5 or 6 years of education. And we didn't think that was probably correct. So we removed those outliers from the data set, but we did include children that were older but may have had less education, since that is more feasibly possible. On this chart, you will also see 3 different lines. The first line says PFM standard, 6 years. We wanted to put lines on this chart to give us some sort of a benchmark to see how are we doing. The first one is the PFM standard that says every child at exit should have completed primary school. and primary school on average in Compassion is 6 years of education. That varies a little bit by country, but primarily it's 6 years of education. A second line we put on then was secondary school. This is not APFM standard, but we thought this might be a helpful benchmark just to see how many of our children are achieving at least secondary education by the time they exit the program. And then the third and final one is one that we're calling national data. And national data is, we're using a third-party research by these two gentlemen called Barrow and Lee. And Barrow and Lee went to every single country that we're in and a few others and estimated the years of education by age group, and primarily for youth. And so while we're showing one standard line here, I'm going to get to a country level data. We'll see actually buckets of 15 to 19-year-old children and 20 to 24-year-old children in a little bit. So that might make a little more sense in a second. So Rodney, I think we're ready. Let me ask first, before we get to quiz time, because we got pop quiz coming up for you. Any questions about what I've shared? Because that's quite a bit of information. That you kind of just digest this portion.
Okay, Ben.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. I wanted to know with the about the exits. Are you looking at both planned and unplanned exits, or just one type of the exits?
Yeah, great question. We are including all exits in this.
Okay.
Unplanned and planned. And that's
okay.
That's why you're going to see children that are younger. Most of our children that would be 7, 8, 9, 10 years old would be unplanned exits.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
So one conclusion we can make from that is a way to drive change here is to not exit as many younger children. That would increase your beneficiary age. Beneficiary age, average beneficiary age, and also your estimated level of education. Yeah.
Okay.
What about those who are older than 22?
What about those that are older than 22, Alan? Well, you can see some of them over here.
How come they're showing up?
How come they're showing up? Because we have them.
Wow.
So we do have a few children.
Do you think that's a data quality problem, or is it actually?
Yeah, great question. So I'm hovering over these right here. I think we've got maybe roughly 10 to 12 children globally that fall into above our 22-year-old range. So, I mean, my opinion of that is we should look into that, but that's also such a small sample size. I don't think it's going to affect our numbers here.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So if you were a country that has some of this data here, it's something we can consider looking into. Why are we exiting children, at 23, 24 years old? A bigger concern for us probably is more of look at all the children that we're exiting at such a young age. Can do there.
Yeah, I think we do have beneficiaries who are over 22 years, and especially in a CIV program, for instance, and there's an exemption for them.
In the CIV program?
They should exit after they complete maybe their university education. Yes, so we do have.
It's a very small number, right? I mean, globally, as I hover over these numbers here, there's 2 children there, 2 children. I mean, each one of these dots represents about 2 to 4 children. So we're really not talking about a very high sample size. Yeah.
I also think that you guys need to understand that if you hover over the concentration of the bubbles, if you imagine, think of it as a line that is going diagonal from the top all the way until almost the middle of the bubbles. You see the bubbles are really big. So that's where our highest concentration is, despite of everything. So that goes back to what Ben was pointing out, that if we bring those younger ones up, we get a better results.
Yeah. So why don't we get to quiz time, Rodney? Because I want to make sure we get to the country-specific one. I got a 2-part quiz. So the first one here is 3 questions for you. The first one is for this specific measure, level of education. When do we measure the level of education attained by each beneficiary? You can see the results there. Number 2, how many months of data are we viewing or using to calculate this measure? And then number 3, on the bubble here on the left, what does that dark black line represent? So go ahead and take that quiz, and we'll see how well you do.
I've seen one response. We need some more responses.
Come on.
Go.
Isn't harder than Rodney's, is it?
All right, we've had like 3 responses.
All right, let's go ahead and fill in what you think it is. Again, we can't see who answers what. So if you're the person who gets something wrong, it's, you know, you're the only one who's going to know that.
Yes.
That's okay. We're all learning together too.
That's right.
Yeah. So you got 4 or 5, Rodney?
Still at 3.
3.
There's 4.
Okay.
All right, should I end it?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, give me the results. Let's talk through these up. Okay, so first question was, for this specific measure, when do we measure the level of education attained by each beneficiary? And 75% of you said at exit. That is correct. So we are only looking at education for this measure at the time of exit. The throughout beneficiaries time and compassion is a little bit misleading because we do kind of calculate it over time, but the point in time that we look at is really how many months of data? You guys all got that right. It is 6 months worth of data, the level of education. And then this one's great. On the bubble chart far left, what does the dark black line represent? It might be hard to see which line is dark black versus gray, but the answer is at number 2, a national benchmark or national data which compassion is chosen to compare against. So again, this is the Barrow-Lee black line that you're seeing there. It says national data is that national benchmark. Let me pick on one of you. So Vita, I'm going to pick on you. So for volunteering, even though I didn't ask you, but for being a part of my little demo here. We're going to pick Ghana just to show you what a country looks like. Okay. And we can do this for any country. And this is what Ghana looks like. So let me, if I was to take this filter down to just Ghana, and so the first thing that you'll notice is that this number here is actually a range now. It's no longer 9.2 to 9.2. It's 7.8 to 8.3. Right? I've got half a year's worth of a range there, and the main reason for that is my sample size is a lot smaller. So Ghana, the raw level of education on the beneficiary profile is 6.6 years. The data lag, or the years since data reviewed, is 1.8 years. We bring those two things together in our estimate to get this range. On average, children are about almost 15 years old when they exit our program, and there's about 1,200 that have exited in the last 6 months. You can see the breakout here, again, by age. Right? So if you're 15 years old, those children have about 8 years of education, all the way up to age 22 has almost 14 years of education. Again, the sample size right underneath there as well, so the N represents the sample size. And then on the left-hand side, you can see these dots now represent only Ghana. So again, our PFM standard and secondary lines are still there, But you'll also see that the Barrow-Lee or the national benchmark, we have two different lines. So I mentioned a bucket of 15 to 19-year-old children and then 20 to 24-year-old children. So for example, Barrow-Lee would say 20 to 24-year-old children in Ghana average 8.7 years of education. Okay, and that's not talking about children in poverty, that's talking about just children in general, youth between the ages of 20 and 24. The blue lines above that represent the averages for compassion. And so you can also see that over here on the right-hand side. So for age 20 to 24, we have every single one of our children is above that line. Or not every single one of our age buckets on average is above that line. Right? So our average for 20-year-olds, for example, is 12.6 years of education, which is substantially higher than the Barrow-Lee number. Okay. Lastly, let me show you, there's another feature we have of this dashboard where we can compare last year to this year. Load that up for you. You can see that 12 months ago, if I was using data from December 2017 to May 2018, that's what this 12 months column would represent, and compare that to this year, here's the change that we've seen. So you can see the difference between a year ago in education and also in the raw years, the data lag, age, and our sample size is about the same. Okay. Any questions before your the last pop quiz?
There's a question posed on the chat and the use of percentiles in the dashboard.
Is it possible to use percentile in the dashboard? It would be helpful for analysis. What type of percentage are you thinking, or percentile?
I'm thinking about median, median, for example.
Oh, showing like the median number?
Yeah.
Okay. So I believe right now the numbers that we have here represent the average. I think we could, I have to speak for Steve who created this. I think we could probably put that on there. That would be helpful to you for analysis. Is that what you're saying? Just to know what the median is for every single one of these lines?
Oh, okay. How can I explain it?
So, I'm having a hard time hearing you. Yeah.
Hey Ben, we're getting close to the time.
Do we have time to do one more quiz or no?
Maybe we could try to do it just a couple more minutes if people can stay just a couple more minutes later, and then we'll.
Why don't we go ahead and do that quiz, and then Ichabod, talk offline about your question about the median that you'd like to add. So maybe if you could send me an email, that'd be great, and we can talk offline about that. So Rodney, could you pop up that last quiz? And then we'll close our time with this. So I've got 4 questions for you, and specifically to Ghana now. So we're talking about Ghana. According to the National Data Benchmark, Barrow-Lee for this country for ages 15 to 19, how many of the 5 age groups are meeting or exceeding the national benchmark? So 5 age groups, 15-year-olds, 16, 17, 18, and 19-year-olds. In this country, are we meeting the PFM standard? And then I'll let you read the last 2 for yourself. So go ahead and complete that quiz, and then we'll close our time together. How many responses do we have, Rodney?
0.
0 responses. Okay. I got a harder quiz this time.
All right, we got 1.
1 response. All right. Way to go.
This is a great quiz, Ben. You guys put together really good.
Gotta give credit to Steve on this one. Steve, these questions. Steve is a former teacher, so this type of thing is right in his wheelhouse. We'll see how the rest of the how M&E specialists feel about it. You guys were getting everything right on all the other ones, so it's time to step.
Right. We got 3 responses, if that's good enough to.
Let's go with that for now. Again, we can't. This isn't so much about getting it right. It's more of a let's see how well we understand things. So, great question. So the first one is, according to the national benchmark, how many of the 5 age groups are meeting or exceeding the national benchmark? So for 15 to 19-year-olds, the national benchmark, I don't know if you can quite see it there. Maybe that's a little hard to see, but there's the benchmark there is 8.1 years. And our 15-year-old children actually only have 8. So technically the answer for this one is 4 out of 5, because those 15-year-old children are not above that benchmark. Number 2, in this country, are we meeting the PFM standard? All right, here, this is an example where I think we're answering this question fairly quickly. Here's the PFM standard. I have children that are both above that PFM standard, and I have children that are below that PFM standard. So the answer we are looking for here is, well, that depends. It depends on which children we're talking about. So on average, we are. But not necessarily for every child. And then number 3, let's see. The estimated years of education seem to show progress from year to year until we see a decline in what age? Everybody got that right. We do see a decline here from 14 to 13.9 years, from 21 to 22-year-olds. Fairly interesting. Vita, you can look into that to see what might be going on there. And then lastly, 3 different answers. Comparing the data of 12 months with the current numbers, which of the following is not true? And the answer here is the second one. The country's data lag is improving. That is not true. Our data lag actually got worse. So we went from 1.4 years to 1.8 years. So going up is actually a worse thing for data lag. And we are seeing about, I guess, whoever wrote number 1, I could see why you might say that, because it is actually a little bit more than a year. I guess we're fudging our numbers there. So anyways, thank you for taking the quiz. Sorry we had to rush through that a little bit. I hope this helps in understanding what some of these dashboards might look like. And again, we'll be explaining more of these things in London when we're all together in person, and we're really excited to meet you then.
Thank you so much, Ben. Thank you for everybody for staying just a bit later. We want to respect your time. I'm sorry we didn't get as much time to ask questions and discuss. If you do have questions, either about anything we heard today or even logistics regarding London, please send to me as well, and we can try to answer those questions. So I think we'll end the call here. Thanks again for everybody for coming, and we look forward to meeting you all in person very soon.
Yes.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Anything.
Okay. Thanks, guys. I'll stop recording this.
You can try the recording later. Did I? What?